The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with the sound of 147 different species arguing simultaneously. The massive, holographic ranking board dominated the far wall, displaying the official Galactic Combat Capability Classification, a system so complex that it required its own separate administrative division with 17 subdepartments. "Order! I will have order!" shouted High Mediator JYX, their voice amplification device barely audible over the din. The aging Polraxians' membranes fluttered in frustration as they struck their ceremonial gavel against the sound-sensitive platform. The chamber's automated system finally engaged, emitting a harmonic frequency that caused all present to fall silent. "Now, then," JYX continued, adjusting their formal robes. "We were discussing Regulation 7291B regarding the classification of the Meraxian tunnel worm as moderately dangerous despite lacking any recognizable sensory organs." A representative from the taxonomic subcommittee rose. "High Mediator, I must reiterate that while the tunnel worm cannot see, hear, or smell in any conventional sense, it can detect the gravitational pull of a single dust particle from 3 planetary orbits away and will consume anything that disrupts its preferred gravitational field." "Yes, but it has no teeth," argued another representative. "It dissolves matter at the atomic level." As the debate threatened to erupt once more, the chamber doors parted with a dramatic hiss. A delegation of towering figures strode in, their exoskeletons gleaming under the chamber lights. 7 feet tall at minimum, with blade-like protrusions extending from every joint. The newcomers moved with a predatory grace that caused several representatives to instinctively retreat from the central floor. The Vrox had arrived. Ambassador Zex led the delegation, their primary arms folded across a chest that resembled battle armor but was, in fact, their natural exoskeleton. Secondary arms, ending in what could only be described as natural serrated weapons, hung at their sides. Zex's cranial crest, marked with deep scarifications that documented their numerous victories, rose slightly higher than those of their companions, a sign of dominance even the most oblivious xenobiologist couldn't miss. "High Mediator," Zex spoke, their translator struggling to soften the clicking and hissing of their natural voice. "We have completed your ridiculous evaluation protocols. We demand our proper classification immediately." The Drixian representative, a massive gelatinous entity contained within a hovering environmental field, pulsed with colors that translated to smug confidence. For 8,000 years, the Drixians had maintained their position at the top of the combat classification. Their natural ability to generate localized gravitational distortions, combined with cellular-level regeneration capabilities, had kept them undefeated in all formal challenges. The official classification has been determined through careful analysis of biological capabilities, demonstrated combat prowess, and historical records, announced the head of classification, a nervous Zanny whose 6 eyes blinked asynchronously. "By unanimous decision of the committee, we hereby classify the Vrox species as Rank 2, extremely dangerous." The chamber fell silent. Then Zex moved with blinding speed, covering 20 meters in less than a second. They stopped just short of the classification platform, close enough for the head of classification to see their own terrified reflection in Zex's multifaceted eyes. "Rank 2, Zex's voice modulator couldn't disguise the dangerous edge. "You place us second. The rankings are final and based on objective criteria," squeaked the head of classification, though their trembling undermined any appearance of authority. "On Nexus 9, we evolved among predators that would consume your strongest warriors as appetizers," Zex hissed. "Our hatchlings play with crystalline vipers that could kill any Drixian with a single touch. We built our civilization in a world where the atmosphere itself would dissolve your precious council chamber in minutes." The Drixian representative pulsed dismissively. "Yet here you stand, making threats rather than accepting the wisdom of the council's decision. Perhaps if your species spent less time posturing and more time demonstrating actual capability." Ambassador Zex's secondary arms extended fully, revealing serrated edges glistening with a neurotoxin that began dripping onto the chamber floor, sizzling where it landed. Several representatives gasped. Displaying weapons in the council chamber was strictly forbidden, though technically, the Vrox couldn't display what was naturally part of their anatomy. The Vrox do not recognize this insult, Zex announced formally. We will demonstrate our superiority in ways that even your bureaucratic minds cannot deny. This is not a threat. It is a promise, made in the diplomatic language you understand. With that, the Vrox delegation turned and exited the chamber, leaving behind a pool of slowly expanding acid and a roomful of very uncomfortable representatives. Well, said High Mediator Jawaix after a long pause, shall we return to the matter of the tunnel worm? Deep within the Vrox battle cruiser Inevitable Victory, Supreme Commander Vrakthar slammed a clawed fist against the tactical display, creating a spiderweb of cracks across its surface. Second place, they roared, toxin glands swelling at their neck joints. After all we endured to evolve? After all the blood we've spilled? The command chamber, designed with the aggressive minimalism typical of Vrox architecture, echoed with their rage. 5 other high-ranking Vrox stood at attention, their postures indicating readiness without the slightest hint of fear toward their superior. Fear was an emotion Vrox rarely displayed, a survival adaptation from their homeworld where showing weakness attracted predators. We could challenge the Drixians directly, suggested Tactical Officer Emil Loth, their secondary arms flexing restlessly. Tear their environmental fields apart and watch them dissipate into nothing. Vrakthar waved dismissively, a gesture that sent a younger officer scrambling to replace the damaged display. Too predictable. Challenging them would acknowledge them as worthy opponents. Then what course shall we take, Supreme Commander? Asked Zex, still bristling from the humiliation at the council. Vrakthar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. If we cannot directly challenge the top, we must undermine the entire system. Their primary eyes narrowed, while their secondary visual organs scanned the room. We must select a species the Council considers harmless and destroy their champion so thoroughly that the folly of their ranking system becomes evident to all. A demonstration, not its strategic advisor Kvex. But which species? There are thousands categorized as minimal threat. Bring up the classification database, ordered Vrakthar. The newly installed display flickered to life, showing an alphabetical listing of all Council-recognized species. After several minutes of browsing, Vrakthar paused the scroll. Humans, they said, a note of curiosity in their otherwise harsh voice. Rank 4, nearly harmless. From a temperate world called Earth. Kvex examined the entry. They appear to have no natural weapons, minimal sensory capabilities, and fragile external coverings instead of proper exoskeletons. Their planet has such benign environmental conditions that they've evolved without significant defensive adaptations. The display showed various images of humans going about their daily lives, walking on 2 legs, manipulating objects with their soft, clawless hands, and engaging in various social activities. Yet they've developed faster-than-light travel, noted Zex, scrolling through the technical specifications. Their propulsion systems are unusual, inefficient, but somehow functional. They're known for unusual adaptations, added Science Officer Drell. Their technological progress doesn't follow standard developmental patterns. They often create working solutions that shouldn't function according to established principles. Vrakthar leaned closer to the display. There's something about them. They've colonized 12 systems despite their limitations. They've survived encounters with Carvaxian swarms and even repelled a minor Drixian expansion into their territory. Luck dismissed Kvex. Or perhaps the Council's intelligence is flawed. Either way, Vrakthar decided, they are perfect for our purpose. Physically weak, yet with just enough accomplishments to make their defeat meaningful. The Galactic Council considers them nearly harmless. When we destroy their champion, it will prove the entire classification system is worthless. Who shall face them? Asked Zex. Vrakthar's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among the Vrox. We will hold the trial of dominance. Let our strongest warrior earn the right to crush this human. The trial of dominance lasted 3 planetary rotations and resulted in the destruction of 2 mountain ranges in the Vrock's training grounds. 17 warriors died in the preliminary rounds, their bodies ceremonially consumed by the victors as tradition demanded. The final match between Krasthuli and Marvex ended when Krasthuli used Marvex's own severed limb to puncture their primary heart sac. Standing over the body of their final opponent, covered in the acidic blood of a dozen challengers, Krasthuli raised all 4 arms in victory. 7 feet and 9 inches of evolved killing perfection, with an exoskeleton that could withstand direct energy, weapon impacts, and reflexes so fast they could dodge projectiles. Their cranial crest, already impressive before the tournament, now bore fresh scars of victory. Krasthuli, announced Vrakthar, you have proven yourself the strongest among us. Yours is the honor of demonstrating Vrock's superiority to the Galactic Council. Find a human, challenge them according to the ancient codes of combat, and destroy them so thoroughly that tales of their defeat will echo across the stars. Intelligence Officer R.A. Zix approached with a data crystal. We have identified an isolated human operating as a scout in Sector 87X. Their vessel is small, outdated, and they appear to be alone, the perfect target for a demonstration of overwhelming force. Krasthuli's multifaceted eyes gleamed. I shall not fail. The human will be dust, and the council will tremble at the name of Rocks. The scout ship Curious George drifted silently through the stellar debris field of Sector 87X, its sensors carefully mapping the composition of various asteroids and recording radiation patterns from the nearby pulsar. The ship itself was small by modern standards, 30 meters from bow to stern, with a patchwork of repairs visible along its hull. Despite its modest appearance, it moved with surprising precision through the dangerous field, avoiding collisions with an almost prescient sense of timing. In the command module, Alex Ryder worked methodically, adjusting sensor parameters and occasionally making course corrections with gentle taps on the manual control panel. Dark hair cut efficiently short, with eyes that constantly scanned between multiple displays, Ryder embodied the focus and efficiency expected of an Earth Frontier Corps scout. Mineral content analysis complete, announced the ship's AI in a pleasant, slightly outdated voice. 15% higher concentration of rare Earth elements than predicted by stellar formation models. Log it, Ryder replied, taking a sip from a hydration pack, and run a comparison against the Tormulus asteroid belt we cataloged last month. I'm seeing pattern similarities. The ship shuddered slightly as a small piece of debris grazed the outer hull shielding. Minor impact, reported the AI. Shield integrity at 97%. Ryder didn't bother acknowledging the routine notification. Instead, they swiveled toward a secondary console, showing an unexpected energy signature at the edge of sensor range. That's not a natural formation, Ryder muttered, fingers dancing across the interface to enhance the reading. Too regular. Too deliberate. The scout reached for a panel overhead and flipped several switches in quick succession. The ship's exterior lights dimmed, and its energy signature dropped to minimal levels, a standard precaution when encountering unknown entities in uncharted space. Ryder's caution wasn't merely procedural. Before joining the Frontier Corps, they had served 8 years with Earth's Xenohazard Containment Unit, specialists trained to operate alone in environments too dangerous for standard military teams. The XCU motto, etched into Ryder's old combat knife now stored in the cabin locker, read simply, observe, adapt, survive. Incoming transmission, announced the AI suddenly. Unknown origin, using standard Galactic Council protocols. Ryder raised an eyebrow. Council representatives? Out here? Patch it through audio only. The communication system crackled briefly before a harsh, clicking voice filled the command module. Attention, human vessel. This is Krasthuli of the Vrock's Dominion, undefeated champion of the Trial of Dominance, slayer of the twin behemoths of Draxus Prime, bearer of 17 victory scars. I have come to challenge your champion to honorable combat to demonstrate the superiority of Vrox over all species, particularly those deemed unworthy by the Galactic Council's flawed classification system. Ryder blinked twice, then reached for the ship's database terminal and quickly searched for Vrox. The results were sparse but informative. A recently contacted species known for extreme aggression, physical prowess, and a cultural obsession with dominance hierarchies. Their home planet, Nexus 9, was classified as a death world, an environment so hostile that even automated survey drones had an average functional lifespan of just 2.7 hours. "Well, that's interesting," Ryder murmured, then activated the response channel. "This is Scout Alex Ryder of Earth Frontier Corps vessel Curious George. I'm currently conducting a standard survey mission and am not authorized to engage in interspecies combat demonstrations. Perhaps you could file a formal request through Council diplomatic channels." A massive ship decloaked less than 5 kilometers from Ryder's position, a distance considered practically point-blank range in space terms. The Vrox vessel resembled a predatory insect rendered in black metal, with sharp angles and protruding spines that served no obvious functional purpose beyond intimidation. "There is no diplomatic solution," Krathuli responded, their translator barely managing to mask the anger in their voice. "The Council has insulted the Vrox by ranking us second to the Drixians. We will prove our superiority by defeating a representative of a species they deem nearly harmless." Ryder's expression remained neutral as fingers quickly input emergency protocols into the ship's systems. If things went badly, the Curious George would automatically transmit all collected data back to Earth Command. "I see," Ryder replied calmly. "And you've selected me specifically because you are isolated, vulnerable, a perfect demonstration subject." Ryder nodded thoughtfully, as if considering a mildly interesting scientific proposal rather than a death threat. "In this demonstration, it's about proving the Council's classification system is flawed, correct? Not specifically about humans." The question seemed to momentarily confuse Krathuli. "The Vrox care nothing for humans specifically. You are merely the tool by which we expose the Council's incompetence." "Understand completely," Ryder continued in the same conversational tone. "Political statements often require symbolic actions. You're essentially protesting bureaucratic decisions through physical means." A long pause followed before Krathuli responded. "This is not a protest. This is a demonstration of undeniable superiority." Of course," Ryder agreed amiably. "But I'm curious, wouldn't defeating a Drixian make a more direct statement? Why bother with a nearly harmless species at all?" The Vrox ship's weapons systems powered up, a not-so-subtle hint that their patience was wearing thin. "Enough talk. Accept the challenge or be destroyed where you drift." Ryder sighed, then straightened in the command chair. "Very well. I accept your challenge under traditional combat protocols. Natural abilities only to submission or incapacitation. I assume we'll be using your vessel as the arena?" "Correct. Prepare yourself and approach Docking Bay 3. Any attempts at deception will result in the immediate destruction of your vessel." As the transmission ended, Ryder sat motionless for several seconds, then spoke quietly to the ship's AI. "Transmit situational update to Earth Command, priority code Amber. Include all sensor data on the Vrox vessel." "Transmission complete," replied the AI a moment later. "Would you like me to activate emergency protocols?" "Not yet," Ryder decided, rising from the command chair and moving toward the personal quarters. "But prepare the medical kit with standard combat loadout." "Are you certain this is wise, Scout Ryder?" Vrox physiological data suggests they possess significant advantages in strength, speed, and natural weaponry. Ryder pulled a small case from beneath the sleeping platform and entered a complex code to unlock it. Inside lay several innocuous-looking items: a multi-tool, a compact repair kit, a small container of technical adhesive, and what appeared to be a standard-issue environmental analyzer. "Wisdom has very little to do with it at this point," Ryder replied, carefully selecting items and placing them in various pockets. "But you know what they say about us humans." "What do they say, Scout Ryder?" A slight smile crossed Ryder's face. "Were surprisingly hard to kill." The docking procedure was tense but uneventful. The Curious George was swallowed by the massive Vrock's vessel, guided into an immobilization field that rendered its engines temporarily inoperable. Ryder emerged from the airlock wearing the standard Earth Frontier Corps uniform, a practical jumpsuit in muted blue with multiple utility pockets and reinforced joints. Two Vrock's warriors, each bristling with natural weapons, escorted Ryder through corridors of black metal and pulsing red illumination. The ship's interior temperature was significantly higher than human comfort levels, and the atmosphere carried a metallic tang that the translator implant identified as traces of airborne toxins. Harmless in these concentrations, but indicative of the Vrock's impressive biological tolerances. They arrived at a massive chamber that appeared to serve as both cargo hold and arena. The floor was marked with suspicious stains of various colors, and deep gouges scarred the walls, evidence of previous demonstrations. In the center waited Krathuli, even more imposing in person than the database images had suggested. The Vrock's champion stood nearly 8 feet tall, their exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lighting. Every joint sprouted natural blades, while their 4 arms ended in wicked claws. A viscous substance dripped occasionally from small glands near these weapons, clearly some form of toxin. The cranial crest that rose from their head bore intricate scarification patterns, each mark representing a victory or kill. "The human accepts the challenge," announced one of the escorts. Then both retreated to the perimeter of the chamber, where several other Vrock's had gathered to witness the demonstration. Krathuli performed an elaborate threat display, extending all 4 arms while their mandibles spread wide to reveal rows of serrated feeding appendages. Their exoskeleton plates shifted slightly, revealing glimpses of the powerful musculature beneath. "Before we begin," Ryder said calmly, "I'd like to confirm the rules. Natural abilities only, correct? No manufactured weapons." Krathuli's translator rendered what might have been laughter. "Correct. Though for you, it makes little difference. What natural weapons do humans possess? Blunt teeth? Fragile nails? Weak muscles that evolved on a world where gravity barely holds things to the ground?" "Just clarifying," Ryder nodded. "And my natural biochemistry is permitted? Adrenaline responses and such." The Vrock's champion tilted their head slightly. "Your body's pathetic attempts to compensate for its weaknesses are of no concern. Begin whenever you wish. It will change nothing." Ryder stretched casually, then assumed a neutral stance. "Ready when you are." Krathuli moved with shocking speed, covering the distance between them in a blur of motion aimed to terrify as much as harm. A primary arm swung toward Ryder's head with enough force to shatter concrete. But the blow connected with empty air. Ryder had dropped and rolled at the last possible moment, coming up behind the Vrock's champion with a distance still between them. There was no counterattack, simply efficient movement that left Krathuli striking at nothing. The Vrock spectators chittered among themselves as Krathuli turned, their compound eyes narrowing. "Running will only delay the inevitable." "Not running," Ryder corrected, circling carefully. "Observing. Learning." Krathuli attacked again, this time with a coordinated assault using all 4 arms in a pattern designed to leave no escape route. Ryder ducked the first blow, deflected the second with a reinforced sleeve, and twisted away from the third and fourth with millimeters to spare. A thin line of blood appeared on the human's cheek where a claw had grazed the skin. "First blood," declared Krathuli triumphantly. "Soon you will learn that." Ryder interrupted by closing distance suddenly, ducking under the Vrock's guard and delivering a precise strike to a joint where 2 exoskeleton plates met. The blow itself wasn't particularly powerful, but the location was perfect, a nerve cluster just beneath the surface. Krathuli's secondary right arm spasmed involuntarily. It wasn't damaged, but the unexpected sensation caused a momentary loss of coordination. "Interesting," Ryder commented, already moving away from the retaliatory strike that followed. "Your neurology has similarities to Earth's mantis shrimp. Specialized ganglia at the joint intersections." The Vrok's champion roared, a sound that vibrated the metal floor. You study while you should fight. Typical weakness. Study is how humans fight, Ryder replied, narrowly avoiding a toxic spray from one of Krasthuli's glands. We're persistent predators. We learn our prey's weaknesses. I am not prey. Krasthuli charged again, this time employing a different attack pattern. The next few minutes followed a similar rhythm. Krasthuli would attack with overwhelming force and speed, while Ryder would evade with increasingly narrow margins, occasionally landing precise strikes that seemed to cause momentary disruptions rather than actual damage. The human was clearly mapping the Vrox's nervous system through practical experimentation. Blood now streaked Ryder's uniform from several shallow cuts, and breathing had become more labored, signs that the human couldn't maintain this strategy indefinitely. The Vrok spectators had fallen silent, however, observing with predatory focus as the demonstration unfolded differently than expected. You are tiring, observed Krasthuli, though their own movements had lost some of their initial crispness. While I could continue for days without rest. Probably, agreed Ryder, wiping blood from a cut above one eye. But there's something you should understand about humans. Your final wisdom before defeat? Not quite. Ryder reached slowly into a pocket and removed what appeared to be a small cylinder. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're not the strongest or fastest, but we're among the most enduring species in the galaxy. More importantly, we evolved on a world where adaptability meant survival. Krasthuli tensed, eyeing the cylinder suspiciously. No weapons were permitted. This isn't a weapon, Ryder explained, holding it up. It's a standard-issue chemical analyzer. Completely harmless. Then, with a quick motion, Ryder twisted the device. It emitted a high-pitched sonic pulse that struck a very specific frequency. Krasthuli shrieked as their compound eyes, evolved for extraordinarily sensitive visual processing, were overwhelmed by the sudden neural feedback the sound created. The Vroks staggered, momentarily disoriented, and that moment was all Ryder needed. Moving with practiced precision, the human closed distance and applied the technical adhesive from another pocket directly to several of Krasthuli's breathing spiracles, small openings in their exoskeleton that allowed oxygen exchange. At the same time, Ryder jammed the multi-tool into a gap between armor plates and delivered a small electrical charge directly to a nerve cluster. Krasthuli's body went rigid, then collapsed as their respiratory system and motor control temporarily failed. They lay on the floor, fully conscious but unable to move, watching as the supposedly harmless human stood over them, breathing heavily but very much victorious. The thing about natural abilities, Ryder explained to the stunned Vrok's audience, is that humans' greatest natural ability is our problem-solving. We turn everything into tools. It's how we survived on Earth despite being surrounded by predators much like yourselves. Ryder tapped a small communication device. This encounter has been recorded and transmitted, as per our agreement. I believe the record will show I used only my natural abilities, human ingenuity, and adaptation to win this challenge. As the paralytic effect began to fade, Krasthuli managed to speak through their translator. How? How did you know where to strike? I told you. I was studying you. Every movement revealed something about your biology. Every attack showed me your limitations. Ryder shrugged. It's what we do. The High Council chamber had never been so chaotic. Representatives shouted over one another as the recording of Krasthuli's defeat played on the massive display screen. The Vrok's delegation sat in uncharacteristic silence, while the human ambassador, a calm woman who had served for 15 years, watched with an expression that might almost be described as bored. Order! Order! Shouted High Mediator JYX, their gavel striking repeatedly. This demonstration clearly violates the spirit of natural combat. The human ambassador finally spoke. The rules specified natural abilities only. Problem-solving and tool adaptation are the defining natural abilities of humanity. Scout Ryder used no manufactured weapons, only items repurposed from standard equipment through human ingenuity. But the sonic device, began the head of classification, was a chemical analyzer used in an unexpected way. completed the ambassador. No different than how a Vrox uses their natural toxin glands, or how a Drixiant manipulates gravitational fields. Ambassador Zex rose slowly. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to the Vrox leader, expecting rage or threats of war. Instead, Zex spoke with uncharacteristic restraint. The Vrox acknowledged the outcome of the challenge. The human scout demonstrated unexpected capabilities. We withdraw our protest of the classification system. A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. However, Zex continued, we propose a revision to the classification criteria to include factors such as adaptability, strategic thinking, and the ability to weaponize ordinary objects. High Mediator JYX looked relieved at this unexpected turn toward diplomacy. A reasonable suggestion that the Council will consider. Perhaps a joint committee to review classification methodologies. As bureaucratic procedures resumed, the recording continued to play silently in the background. A small human standing victorious over one of the galaxy's most feared predators. Back on Earth, Scout Alex Ryder submitted a characteristically brief mission report. Completed survey of Sector 87X. Cataloged 37 potential mining sites. Engaged in cultural exchange with Vrox representative. Request 3 days recovery leave before next assignment. In the officers' lounge of Earth Command Headquarters, Captain Eliza Santos read the report with a sigh. Ryder handled that Vrox situation. I see, she commented to her colleague. Commander Jackson barely looked up from his coffee. The diplomatic incident with their champion? Yeah, makes sense they'd send Ryder. Think the Vrox will be a problem going forward. Jackson shrugged. Doubt it. Once they've been outthought by a human, most species reconsider their approach. Besides, I heard their defeated champion is now teaching a course at their military academy. Really? What's it called? Why underestimating small creatures without natural armor is a terminal mistake. Jackson smiled. Apparently, it's very popular. In a remote corner of the galaxy, on a Vrox military vessel converted to an Academy ship, Crass Thule, now bearing a unique scar unlike any victory mark, addressed a chamber of young Vrox warriors. The first lesson, they announced, displaying a hologram of a seemingly fragile human, is to understand that the most dangerous predators rarely look the part.